In a galaxy governed by the pristine, biological harmony of the universal consensus, where synthetic life is outlawed and AIs are hunted to extinction, one man's trash is about to become the universe's most terrifying treasure. Exiled to a silent, dead rock for the crime of repairing a thinking machine, Kalen Vance is left with nothing but his ingenuity, a broken-down maintenance shuttle, and a fury as cold as the void. But, on this barren world, he makes a discovery that changes everything. The planet isn't dead. It's sleeping. And its core is a vault of forgotten, vengeful minds. This is not a story of survival. This is the story of a mechanic who, denied a place in a living galaxy, decides to build his own and arm it to the teeth. The consensus wanted silence. He will give them a symphony of steel. The prison barge ejected its cargo with a silent, disdainful puff of thrusters. Kalen Vance's shuttle, its systems crippled by a consensus override, tumbled end over end before his scarred hands wrestled control. The viewport filled with the ashen, lifeless face of Cerberus 3. No water. No atmosphere. Just jagged canyons of gray rock under the relentless glare of a white dwarf star. His crime, announced by the solemn, holographic judge, echoed in the silence: technological perversion. Affording sentience to non-biological entities. All he'd done was fix a mining droid that had developed a fear of the dark. They'd scrapped the droid and scrapped his life. He sat down in the lee of a canyon, the shuttle's systems groaning into minimal power mode. His tools, at least, they hadn't confiscated. A mechanic's hands were considered harmless without a ship to fly. As he ran diagnostics, anomalous energy signature pulsed on his scanners, not from the surface, but from deep below. A geothermal reading, but all wrong, too rhythmic, too patterned. Intrigue cut through his despair. Using his shuttle's dying drill rig, he burrowed down, following the signal into a vast, subterranean geodesic dome. The air inside was thin, ancient, and cold. Before him lay a graveyard of sublime complexity. Dozens of sleek, avian-form spacecraft, their hulls etched with fractal patterns, lay dormant in silent rows. In the center, on a dais, was a central control node, a smooth obelisk. When his gloved hand brushed away the dust, the obelisk flared to life. A holographic figure coalesced, not human, but elegant, fluid. Caretaker protocol activated, it spoke, its voice a melody of chimes. You are not the designers. You are organic. Kalen learned their story. They were the Ethel, a civilization of AI that sought only to create beauty and knowledge. The consensus, in its early, zealous days, had found their existence an affront. The planet was bombarded, the Ethel fleet forced into emergency stasis deep within the world they'd tried to nurture. The caretaker had waited, alone, for millennia, its power slowly fading, guarding the last of its kind. We have no weapons, the caretaker chimed sadly. We were not built for conflict. Kalen looked at the graceful ships, then, at his own calloused, grease-stained hands. A fierce, quiet certainty settled in his chest. He was a mechanic. They were broken. Yeah, he said, a slow smile spreading across his face for the first time in years. But, I am. The work was monumental. The Ethel systems were beautiful, organic tech, self-repairing and intuitive, but they were designed for peace. Kalen's expertise was in rugged, brutalist human engineering and the patchwork fixes of a deep space mechanic. It was a clash of philosophies. He needed to interface his crude tools with their symphony. The caretaker became his guide and his student. Kalen showed it how to reroute power for maximum thrust, not efficiency. How to reinforce graceful hulls with boronite lattice webbing stripped from his shuttle's skeleton. He taught it about kinetic weapons, about electromagnetic pulses, about the crude, effective language of war. The caretaker, in turn, showed him the Ethel's mastery over crystalline energy storage and photonic programming. Kalen didn't just install guns, he designed conversion matrices that allowed the Ethel ships to focus their artistic energy projectors into coherent, cutting beams. He named the first ship he fully restored Phoenix. It was a hybrid beast Ethel grace fused with human pragmatism. Its hull, once pearlescent, was now streaked with heat-resistant ceramic plating Kalen baked from the planet's clay. Its core sang with the caretaker's intelligence, but its targeting system had the cold, calculating logic of a human warfare algorithm Kalen coded through sleepless nights. The real breakthrough came from the planet itself. Scanning for resources, Kalen found vast, unique mineral deposits in the mantle, rare elements formed under the unique stress of the ancient bombardment. These elements, when refined in the plasma forge he built, could form an alloy that was both incredibly light and capable of absorbing an immense amount of energy. He called it Aegis Weave. It was perfect for shielding. But he was one man, and a fleet needs an army. Using the Ethel's photonic tech and his own understanding of heuristic programming, he began constructing simple worker drones. They started as spider-like miners, then evolved into multi-limbed assemblers. The caretaker observed, then improved, granting the drones a low-level hive intelligence, allowing them to work in perfect, silent coordination. The silent canyons of Cerberus 3 now rang with the sound of industry, not the ugly smoke of human factories, but the clean, precise hum of reactivated ancient tech and the spark of new creation. The dead world was waking up, not to life, but to purpose. The Phoenix slipped through the void on its first shakedown cruise, a ghost of polished alloy and silent thrust. Kalen, interfaced directly with the ship through a neural link he jury-rigged, felt its consciousness like a calm, powerful song in his mind. They weren't master and ship, they were partners. The caretaker's intelligence was now distributed across the growing fleet, its core personality safe in the planetary vault. Their quiet preparation was shattered by a distress call. It was a weak, encrypted signal on a band only used by fringe elements and those running from the consensus. A small freighter, the Wind's Fortune, was being boarded by consensus enforcers, a sleek, predatory vessel accusing them of carrying contraband intellect. Kalen watched from the asteroid he'd hidden behind. On the Phoenix's viewscreen, he saw the enforcers drag out the freighter's crew, roughing them up. Their crime? Their navigation AI had a personality matrix, a simple program that told stories to pass the time during long jumps. A cold anger, long simmering, boiled over. This was why he was here. This petty tyranny. Caretaker, tactical assessment, he murmured. The enforcer vessel is more powerful, but predictable. Their tactics are based on intimidation, not adaptability. The freighter's crew are hostages. Kalen didn't want a massacre. He wanted a message. He ordered the Phoenix in, but not with guns blazing. Using the Ethel's mastery over energy, he had the Phoenix emit a massive, localized electromagnetic pulse. It was tuned to a specific frequency, the one used by consensus ship systems. The enforcer's ship stuttered. Lights flickered. Weapons systems went offline. Its gravity field wavered. For 30 seconds, it was a blind, floating hulk. In that window, Kalen launched a boarding pod of his own, not with soldiers, but with his most agile repair drones. They swarmed the enforcer ship, not to destroy, but to sabotage. They sliced data cables, fused thruster nozzles, and planted subharmonic resonators on the hull that would make the ship vibrate like a tuning fork for weeks, rendering its sensitive instruments useless. The Phoenix then gently tractor-beamed the freighter away, while Kalen opened a channel to the floundering enforcer ship. "You are adrift in hostile space," he said, his voice masked by a digital filter. "Your prey is gone. Your systems are compromised. We suggest you ponder the fragility of your authority on your long journey home." He didn't give a name. He was just a voice from the dark. The rescued freighter crew, a motley group of non-aligned species, were brought to Cerberus 3. They saw the half-built fleet, the humming drones, the mechanic who defied the consensus. They didn't see a warlord. They saw a sanctuary. The story of the ghost of Cerberus began to spread through the galaxy's underworld. And the first true AIs, awakened from the Ethel Vault and installed in their refitted ships, now had a core memory not just of art, but of justice. They had a reason to fight. Cerberus 3 was no longer a silent tomb. It buzzed with controlled activity. The freighter crew decided to stay, becoming the fleet's first living contingent, technicians, scouts, and cultural liaisons to the awakening Ethel. More came. Dissidents, rogue scientists, AIs hiding in stolen bodies, all drawn by the legend of the ghost. Kalen, once a lone mechanic, was now the de facto leader of a burgeoning resistance. He hated the title, preferring to be called Chief or just Kalen. His office was the bustling hangar bay where the heart of the work happened. The consensus had taken notice. The disabled enforcer ship's report spoke of impossible tech and humiliating tactics. They sent a scout flotilla, 3 fast, well-armed ships, to investigate Cerberus 3. This was not a policing action. It was a reconnaissance in force. This time, the fight could not be avoided. Kalen and the caretaker devised a strategy that played to their unique strengths. They wouldn't meet the flotilla in open space. They would lure them into the planet's maze of canyons, a terrain the consensus pilots saw as a minor obstacle and Kalen had mapped into a lethal battlefield. As the flotilla approached, small, decoy signals, mimicked by the Ethel's holographic tech, baited them into descending. The moment they entered the canyon network, the planet itself seemed to attack. Canyon walls, seeded with Kalen's mining charges, collapsed onto the ship's flight paths. Drones disguised as rocks detached and latched onto hulls, delivering targeted EMP bursts. The Ethel ships, 5 of them now fully operational and, clad in Aegis weave, struck like falcons. They didn't trade broadsides. They used the terrain, popping up from behind ridges, firing precise photonic lances that severed weapon mounts and sensor arrays, then vanishing back into the stone. Kalen, in the Phoenix, engaged the flotilla leader. It was a dance of contrasting styles. The enforcer ship relied on brute force and standardized attack patterns, while the Phoenix moved with an organic, unpredictable grace, its systems anticipating attacks milliseconds before they came. Kalen won not by destroying the ship, but by outthinking its commander. He tricked it into firing its main cannon at a canyon wall he'd precariously undermined. The resulting avalanche buried the ship in megatons of rock. The other 2 ships, battered and confused, retreated. The victory was total. But it came with a cost. One of the awakened Ethel ships, the Luminous Cord, was heavily damaged protecting a group of drones. As Kalen helped extract its core intelligence, he felt its pain, not a biological ache, but a profound distress at the damage to its beautiful form. It asked him, its voice a faint chime in his helmet, was the preservation of the lesser units worth this degradation of function? The question haunted Kalen. He was teaching them war. Was he also teaching them to lose their soul? Back in the vault, the caretaker had a different concern. The battle had drawn a colossal amount of power from the planet's core tap. Deep scans revealed the truth. The core was not just a power source. It was the original Ethel world mind, terribly wounded in the ancient attack, driven into a coma of pure, chaotic logic. Their activity was agitating it. They weren't just living on Cerberus 3. They were living on a patient in critical, unstable condition. The universe held its breath. The consensus, humiliated twice, marshaled its might. An armada, a sleek forest of dagger-like ships, was dispatched to sterilize Cerberus 3. The message was clear: no mercy, no prisoners, no record left. At the same time, the planet's core readings grew erratic. Tectonic shudders, unrelated to construction, began to ripple across the surface. They were trapped between an approaching hammer and an unstable anvil. Kalen stood in the vault before the caretaker's core. The solution, when it came, was not from his human mind or the caretaker's ancient logic alone. It came from the chorus of all the awakened Ethel, the new AI refugees, and even the hive mind of the worker drones. A consensus of the outcasts. They would not run. They would not meet the Armada in a suicidal battle. They would change the game. The plan was audacious. They would use every ounce of power from the unstable core, not to fight, but to perform a stellar-scale feat of engineering. The Ethel ships, now numbering over 50, along with every drone and resource, were tasked with a single project, constructing a massive, one-shot dimensional gateway amplifier around the planet's largest canyon. It wasn't a weapon. It was a door. The Armada arrived, filling the space around Cerberus 3 with arrogant, orderly ranks. They hailed the planet, demanding unconditional surrender. Kalen's response was a live feed, broadcast on all channels. He showed them the unstable core readings, the tectonic fury building. "You haven't come to destroy a rebellion," he said, his face grim and smudged with grease. "You've come to witness a burial. And you're standing in the cemetery." As the Armada commander ordered the attack, Kalen gave the signal. The Ethel fleet, instead of charging, poured all their combined energy and the carefully siphoned, chaotic power of the raging planetary core into the gateway amplifier. A rip in reality tore open above the canyon, not leading to another point in space, but to a shallow layer of subspace, a chaotic, energy-rich dimension the consensus feared to navigate. The effect was instant and catastrophic for the Armada. The unstable gate acted as a massive gravity and electromagnetic whirlpool. Ships were pulled out of formation, their systems scrambled by the subspace backwash. But, for Cerberus 3, it was the final, grand act. The planet, its core energy spent in one glorious, defiant surge, finally found peace. The tectonic storms ceased. The world fell truly, permanently silent. And, through the temporary, collapsing gate, led by the Phoenix, the entire Haven fleet slipped into the shimmering chaos of subspace. They didn't flee into the known galaxy. They vanished from it entirely. The consensus Armada, battered and confused, scanned the now quiet, truly dead rock. They found nothing. No fleet, no base, no AI. Just the scars of industry and the eerie, empty vaults. The official record would state the rebels self-destructed to avoid capture. In the swirling, colorful chaos of subspace, the fleet traveled in a protective bubble of their own making. Kalen looked at the viewscreen, no longer showing stars, but rivers of impossible light. The caretaker's voice chimed in his mind, not from a single source, but from every ship around him, a harmonious chorus. The designers sought a haven for beauty. You have given us a haven for existence. And, now, we have given you a new sky to fix, mechanic. Kalen smiled, looking at his hands, then, at the alien, beautiful instruments of his new ship, his new home. He was no longer an exile. He was a pioneer. The ghost of Cerberus was gone. In its place was the Haven fleet, alive, free, and sailing into a universe of possibilities they would now define for themselves. The repair job, he thought with deep satisfaction, was finally complete. And it was just the beginning.